Hello children, today we are going to do the poem 9 Gold Medals written by David Roth. Now David Roth was an American musician, a songwriter, actor, author and a radio personality. In this we talk about the Special Olympics, which is a sporting event in which differently abled sports persons participate. Now, 9 Gold Medals is a very touching poem narrating a story about a wonderful display of human values. The poem narrates an incident that takes place during the Special Olympics, which is held for the sports persons who are differently abled. Now, let us take a look at the summary of the poem. The Special Olympic Games are being held. The last event of the day, that is the 100 meters race, is about to begin. 9 athletes are competing in this race. The race begins. One boy falls down. The others come back to help him. They reach the finish line together holding hands. Each one of them is awarded a gold medal. This is the summary. Now let us slowly begin with the text and its explanation. So first stanza is, the athletes had come from so many countries to run for the gold, for the silver and bronze. Many weeks and months in training, all building up to the games. So the first stanza, it begins like this. The athletes had come from so many countries. Now here, all the participants saw themselves as professional sports persons. Therefore, the use of the word athletes. They had come from so many different countries. Now these words indicate that it was a huge international event and the participants had invested strong hopes in their performance in these games. So it goes, to run for the gold, for the silver and bronze, many weeks and months in training, all building up to the games. So these differently abled participants had not simply come to participate, but also with a definite purpose in mind. That is, they were running to secure either the first, second or the third position. They wanted either to win the gold medal, the silver medal or the bronze medal. They had trained hard for a number of weeks and months, and finally all their efforts had culminated into this participation today. Now the second stanza, all round the field spectators were gathered, cheering on all the young women and men. Then the final event of the day was approaching, the last race about to begin. So the first line of the stanza is, all round the field spectators were gathered. So many people had come to watch the games. Many spectators were gathered to cheer the participants. Now these spectators were the sports enthusiasts. They were the officials, friends, supporters and family members of the participants. Cheering on all the young women and men. So they were equally excited and were cheering loudly and motivating the young men and women to give their best performance. Then the final event of the day was approaching, the last race about to begin. Now it was the time for the last event. All the other events had been conducted and the winners had been declared. Now only the last event was left and preparations were on for it. Now we go to the third stanza. The loudspeakers called out the names of the runners, the 100 meters the race to be run, and 9 young athletes stood there determined and poised for the sound of the gun. So the first line of the third stanza is, the loudspeakers called out the names of the runners. So the runners were standing in all readiness for the race. Their names were announced one by one. The 100 meters, the race to be run. So the name of the event that was going to take place was 100 meters race, and that was also announced. So along with the spectators, the athletes also heard it and they stood there with complete focus and determination to win. And 9 young athletes stood there determined, their determination to win, and poised for the sound of the gun. Poised means ready, and they were waiting. They had taken their positions and they were waiting for the gun to be fired, at which they would all start running. The signal was given, the pistol exploded, and so did the runners on hearing the sound. But the youngest among them stumbled and staggered, and he fell on his knees to the ground. So the fourth stanza begins, the signal was given, the pistol exploded. So as soon as the signal was given, the pistol was fired, and on hearing the sound, what was it? And so did the runners on hearing the sound. And so the runners, they burst out of their position as soon as they heard the sound and began to run forward with all their energy. They too exploded. They had also shot forward. But then there is a sudden dramatic twist. What is it? But the youngest among them stumbled and staggered, and he fell on his knees to the ground. So this is a dramatic twist here with these lines. The word over here, but, the but over here in this line, this word signals a complete turn around. Nobody could have ever expected that a participant who had been training so hard could just slip so suddenly. Also note that he was the youngest. It's mentioned the youngest among them. He was the youngest athlete who stumbled. Stumbled means to trip or momentarily lose one's balance. And the word staggered over here means to move or walk unsteadily. So the use of the word youngest allows us to conclude that in some way he was not as strong as the others. It also makes him the perfect symbol of the message of the poem that we will discuss towards the end. So, an absolute anticlimax takes place here. He not only stumbled and staggered, but he fell on his knees to the ground. Here the poet is creating a powerful visual imagery with powerful movements. First, we had the sound imagery with the announcements being made, the pistol being fired. Then we have the visual imagery with the athletes shooting forward and the powerful contrasting image of the youngest among them tripping, losing his balance and falling to the ground. And as he falls to the ground, the emotional crisis reaches its climax. That is, he is on his knees now, which means he is beaten. He has given up hope. Without even knowing it, he has surrendered to the situation. We empathize with him at this point because, remember, he's the youngest. Then we begin with the fifth stanza. He gave out a cry of frustration and anguish. His dreams and his efforts dash in the dirt. But as sure as I'm standing here telling the story, now it's a strange one, but here's what occurred. So it is, he gave out a cry of frustration and anguish. So the youngest athlete who has fallen down gives out a loud cry of frustration, anguish, that is the severe mental and physical pain or suffering. We are not surprised because it is a natural reaction. Remember, the burst of hope and determination with which he must have started. For an instant now, his dreams and his efforts dashed in the dirt. So, all his hopes, his many months of training, his dream of winning a gold, silver or the bronze medal have been thrown in the dirt with him. Not only is he on his knees in the dirt, but also his dreams and efforts are with him. Also note the use of the word dirt over here. Very clearly it's used dirt instead of the ground because he describes the situation and the boy's emotions so beautifully. But as sure as I'm standing here telling the story, now it's a strange one. But here's what occurred. So poet again uses the word but over here, begins with the word but, which tells us that there is yet another twist. He says, as you see me, an actual human being, an actual person telling you the story, and I'm telling you that what happened after that was very strange, but it was very true. The 8 other athletes stopped in their tracks, the ones who had trained for so long to compete. One by one they turned round and came back to help him and lifted the lad to his feet. The 8 other athletes stopped in their tracks. So the next line tells us why it was so unbelievable. The other athletes, now the word over here is other athletes. They are not called competitors. They stopped in their tracks. The ones who had trained for so long to compete. So they did not hesitate. One by one they turned around. None of them had any doubts of what they were going to do. They came back to help him. One by one they turned round and came back to help him and lifted the lad to his feet. So they lifted him to his feet. Yet another powerful visual image, which is a total contrast. Then all 9 runners joined hands and continued. The 100 meters reduced to a walk, and the banner above that said Special Olympics could not have been nearer the mark. Then all the 9 runners joined hands and continued. So as if the good gesture they had shown was not good enough. Now what did they do? They joined their hands and continued. This time they did not run, they walked. They were runners, but they did not run, they walked. The 100 meters reduced to a walk, and the banner above that said Special Olympics could not have been nearer the mark. So they started walking. They walked in unity. They walked together in solidarity, in togetherness. Note the words 100 meters reduced to a walk over here. Reduced to a walk. What does this mean? It means that now they were not in a competition and the distance of 100 meters would still be covered, but it could be reduced or lessened or made easier by walking. It would be done in collaboration with everyone, reaching the finishing line together at the same time. See here, and the banner above that said Special Olympics could not have been nearer the mark. Here the poet creates another image. What is it? As the 9 athletes walk together, you see the banner above them of Special Olympics written on it, and we realize that these words are appropriate. They are perfectly suited to the situation. Through this exemplary show of humanity and understanding, the athletes have indeed made the Special Olympics special in many ways. Coming to the last stanza of the poem, that's how the race ended, with 9 gold medals. They came to the finish line, holding hands still, and the banner above and 9 smiling faces said more than these words ever will, said more than these words ever will. Beautifully ended. That's how the race ended, with 9 gold medals. So the poet says that in the end, all of them came to the finish line together, holding hands. In appreciation and support of their noble act, they were all given gold medals because they had won the race of life. They had won the race of human values. They came to the finishing line holding hands still, and the banner above and 9 smiling faces said more than these words ever will, said more than these words ever will. So as they stood with smiling faces and the banner over their heads. The joy, the pride, the confidence on their faces and in the hearts of all the spectators conveyed more than what the poet may have conveyed through his words in the poem. The poet wants to say that it is a simple poem with a powerful message in it, which need not just be read, but it must be savored. Thank you.